This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Vicki Connor. Together, we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today, we're headed to one of the Pacific Northwest's most popular destinations, the Waterfall Corridor of the Columbia River Gorge.
Yeah, so the Waterfall Corridor is a roughly 8-mile stretch of the Oregon side of the Columbia River Gorge, where visitors can find about a dozen really beautiful waterfalls. Some of those are found right on the side of the highway. Others might require an easy or a challenging hike to get to. So the area has naturally become a very popular and busy attraction, especially in the late spring and summer, which in recent years has led to some overcrowding that officials have been trying to curb.
Yeah, I think anyone going through this area in the summer knows exactly where we are talking about. But Jamie, where exactly is this?
So if you're driving the historic Columbia River Highway, say from Portland, and you're going up, you go past the Women's Forum viewpoint, you go past Vista House, eventually you're going to start getting to some waterfall parking lots. You're going to hit La Tourelle Falls, Shepherd's Dell Falls, Bridal Veil. You're going to go on past Multnomah Falls, and you're going to end up sort of passing Horsetail Falls as you get down to sort of the end of this area. So it's that stretch right there that's kind of like around the Multnomah Falls area on the Oregon side of the river.
And so we've talked previously on the podcast, around this point in time during the year, some different permits have been in place. So what can you tell us about this year?
So the permits around the gorge can get a little confusing. Over the last few years, especially, we've seen pilot programs come and go. We've seen permits, change, who needs to pay them, when, how. It's all a little bit confusing. So this year, things are mostly pretty stable, but there are a few changes that we wanted to highlight. So first and foremost, when do you need permits at Multnomah Falls? You need them between May 24th and September 2nd. So that stretch in there, it's daily in that stretch, but only from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So folks who are going in there before 9 a.m. or after 6 do not need permits. Okay, if that makes sense.
Yes.
The permits are only required for people who are parking in that main Multnomah Falls parking lot. So if you're parking your car in that big I-84 parking lot in that time frame, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., May 24, September 2, you need a permit for your vehicle. So it's not a per person permit system. It is a per vehicle permit system for every vehicle parking in that specific parking lot. That, in a nutshell, is it. The permits are technically free. They cost $2 to get online at recreation.gov. You got to have it in advance. They are timed entry permits, so they usually are going to say you pick a time of day to go, but there's no time limit on how long you can stay. So you get your permit for say 11 a.m. You can leave at 11:15 after checking out the waterfall. You can say, hey, there it is, and be out of there. You can do a whole hike in that area, go up to the top of Larch Mountain, come back a few hours later, and it's still fine. The idea is just they're trying to limit the number of people who are in there so that everyone doesn't come all at the same time and just completely overwhelm the area.
Right. And this permit is only available online, is that correct?
No, it's mostly available online. So, I mean, if you're going to get one, that's the easiest way to do it. You can get one online up to 14 days in advance. Additional permits are released 2 days in advance. So if your time is full, the time you want to go. You can check it a couple days before your day, and there might be more. But there are some same day permits available free of charge, not even any kind of service fee, at the Gateway to the Gorge Visitor Center in Troutdale and the Cascade Locks Historical Museum. So if you need to get one, you're like, I got to get a vehicle permit. They're not online anymore. It's that day. You can stop off at one of those places and try to get one for free. Now, that's a limited number of permits they have available there, but that is an option for folks who are really in a jam.
I should say that as of right now, as we are recording this podcast, there's quite a number available right now online. It's not, you're not fighting someone as the clock strikes 6 a.m. to try and get one of these permits. So I think with just a little bit of planning ahead, you could easily snag one of these permits for a time that works for you.
Absolutely. This is not like trying to get a permit to backpack the enchantments, right?
Exactly.
Like it's not like you and 20 people trying to get a thing for the day. That parking lot at Multnomah Falls is quite large. Like it does fill up though, is the thing.
Yeah.
So I think if you're talking about going like on, 4th of July weekend, you might have a harder time trying to get one. But this program seems to be working pretty well, and just making people think about what time of day you go, because that, everyone can't show up at noon on Saturday. That's just not tenable.
Right. I think, for a lot of people, it's like, okay, someone's coming in town. I want to show them Multnomah Falls, but okay, let's have a leisurely wake up, go get brunch, and then go head over there. And that's like, around that 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m. time when it's like a mass of people at Multnomah Falls.
That's the way to do it, honestly. That's what I would do, but us and everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we should know. So, I mean, again, this is all applies to people going to Multnomah Falls via I-84, which is the most popular way to do it. But if we're talking about the Waterfall Corridor, people who are doing that particular trip are typically not taking the interstate. They're taking the historic Columbia River Highway. Those people don't need permits because there are not really any places to park at Multnomah Falls on the historic highway. So in the past, it's worked like this. You drive the historic highway down, you reach Multnomah Falls, and there's a little tiny parking lot on the left side of the road as you're coming in from Portland. And that little tiny parking lot of like 40 spaces-ish, it got jammed with people who were trying to go in there, find a spot, or people who are like just saying, I'm going to wait here until someone leaves. But they're waiting on like the highway. And there's a crosswalk of everyone who's coming in from the interstate parking lot to get over to Multnomah Falls. And there's just like people trying to get around people and then getting stuck. It's been an insane gridlock. So that was the point that a lot of officials are like, we got to change this. Something's got to be different. So last year they added some flaggers to that area to say like, keep moving. That parking lot's full. We can't have you stopping here, which is helpful. They've added a timed permits on the big parking lot, which is limiting the number of people who are going to come in all at once. And then this year, that little parking lot, that little 40 space lot on the historic highway is now privately operated by a company called Sasquatch Shuttles, which we'll get to in a minute. And Sasquatch Shuttles is charging people up to $20 to park there. The idea being, this is a premium spot, This is like a primo parking spot on the historic highway right across from Multnomah Falls. It should demand a premium price. And so the idea being people who aren't willing to pay that will maybe just keep moving. Right. So that means if you're trying to do the historic highway tour, unless you're going to angle for one of those premium spots and only if there's a spot open, otherwise you're just not going to see Multnomah Falls. You can wave at it out the car window or try this sort of convoluted way to get from the historic highway out to 84 to that main lot to go see it. So, I mean, the system is rough. What they need is just like an on-ramp from the historic highway to the big parking lot, but that doesn't exist. So this whole trip is a little confusing. And the idea of being like, I'm going to go do the Waterfall Corridor, but not do the best one is a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah. Also, it really goes against my ethos to pay $20 for parking. I know it's a premium, but man, just get your permit online and gosh.
I will say Sasquatch Shuttle says like they have a and again we'll talk more about shuttles here in a minute, but they say if you don't want to pay that, you can park at our parking lot in Bridal Veil, where that parking's only $5, and we will give you a free shuttle down to Multnomah Falls from there.
Yeah.
So they're trying to offer an alternate place to park that is not that one little lot in front of the falls. And again, I don't know. We'll see how successful it is for people. But this is at least how things are working this season. So it's all this kind of stuff. It's all a pilot program until people get used to it, or it doesn't work. So I'm curious to see how it's going to shape out. But that's where we're sitting right now in 2024.
Gotcha. Well, as someone who historically always avoids the crowds, mostly by going on weekdays to adventures, what are some strategies here for people if they're not trying to get gridlocked, trying to find a space? What do you think is best here?
I mean, I think there's a couple different options. One option is to just go in a time when it's not crowded. Go on a weekday morning, go later at night. That after 6 p.m. time slot, especially this time of year, is great because there are going to be fewer people and you still have plenty of light. Maybe not enough time to do a whole hike or whatever, but if you want to just see the waterfall, that's a decent time to do it. Of course, a lot of people don't have the privilege to do weekday travel like this, right? Folks have day jobs, or they just don't have the opportunity. So I think if you are in that position where you're like, it's a weekend, I gotta go, the strategy I think is let's look at alternative transportation methods. So obviously we're in a car culture. We're used to getting in our personal vehicles, driving. That's why we got the parking permits. That's how it's all set up. But in these like strategies to mitigate crowds in this area, officials have really been working to like establish alternate transportation. So there is the Columbia Area Transit bus that runs from the Gateway Transit Center in East Portland all the way out to Hood River. I can't remember if it goes more than that now, but like it runs to these spots, the big spots anyway. So you can get like public transit out there. There's also the Sasquatch Shuttle, who we just mentioned. They have their shuttle from their Bridal Veil parking lot to Multnomah Falls. So if you want to find an easy place to park, pay a little bit of money, $5 is not that much more than $2 because you won't need a permit if you're doing it this way. Then you can get a nice shuttle straight to Multnomah Falls and back. And then of course there's the Gray Line trolley, the hop on, hop off trolley option, where you can, go see some of these waterfalls themselves. Maybe just pop off, do a little hike, come back, hop back on when the next one comes by. A lot of different options you can do. And in any of those ways you do not have to pay that parking fee, obviously, because you're not parking in the big lot. Also, folks, if you're biking in, a lot of cyclists like to do the historic highway. Don't have to worry about getting a permit for that. And if you're a person who's hiking in from somewhere else in the gorge on their trailhead to Multnomah Falls, you can do it. Obviously, you don't need any kind of permit to do that.
Just hike right on in from Portland. There you go.
That's a little much. You can hike in from other parts of the gorge. That trail system is intricate and crazy, but it is like, boy, that's a lot. That's a lot of hiking.
Yeah. What else should people know about this area? Maybe if they want to avoid, all of this, all of the permits, all of the parking. Maybe if they just want to see a portion of the Waterfall Corridor.
Oh, that's a way that you can do it as well. Like you can say like, look, I don't want to do this whole Waterfall Corridor thing. I want to just see the good stuff. And I think that's where a lot of people will do the thing where they just park at the I-84 lot. You get your permit, you see Multnomah Falls, and you say, I've seen the big one, I'm done. Because even if you're doing this Waterfall Corridor and you're not doing Multnomah Falls, that area still gets really crowded on the summer weekends. So you might not be able to park at, say, Bridal Veil Falls or at La Tourelle Falls. That parking lot might be full. So there's a chance you could do this whole thing and just be looking at the waterfalls out the window as best you can see them as you're driving by, just waving to them and saying, see you next time. I will say these aren't the only waterfalls in the gorge. This is a great stretch, but there are so many other waterfalls.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about, the Eagle Creek Trail, Waclella Falls. There's a bunch of waterfalls on the historic Columbia River Highway State Trail, that paved pathway near Starvation Creek. There's a great waterfall over on Hamilton Mountain. That's really nice. Obviously, all these places are still crowded. I should say, if you're on a Saturday afternoon in the summer, you're trying to see a waterfall, any waterfall, literally anywhere in this area, it's going to be crowded. So, I mean, my strategy is always weekdays. If you have the ability, go on a weekday. If you don't have to go on a weekend, don't do it. That's again, we've talked about this all the time in the podcast. But like I'm headed out there to take some pictures of the waterfalls this week, and I'm going to go on Thursday morning, and hope that I'm not going to have too much competition to get these waterfalls. And I think just, making sure that you're okay with missing out on stuff, right? That's just kind of that psychological shift you need to make of because we make these plans to go to the Waterfall Corridor and I want to see every single one. I want to get a video for my reels that shows me at every single waterfall. But you might not make it to every single one. And that just has to be okay. So I think, loosening your expectations of what you're going to be able to get, again, especially if you're on one of these busier days, that goes a long way towards having a better time out there.
I think the biggest saving grace is the days being so long, though. Going off what you said, you can easily go in the morning. Well, not easily if you're not a morning person, but you can set an alarm and go before 9 a.m. at some point. Or on the other hand, you can go later in the evening. And what I like about both of these, especially if you're going specifically for your photo or your reels, that's the best lighting that you're going to get also. So,
I mean,
get some golden hour shots of some waterfalls. Not the worst thing.
Definitely. I feel like as we're talking about all this, it'd be really easy to hear this and go, well, I'm just not going to go. This sounds like too much of it. Permits, the times, the crowds. Why would I even go to the Waterfall Corridor if it's going to be like this? But I mean, it's popular for a reason. Vicky, you've been out to some of these areas, right?
Oh yeah, I've been to most of all of them now. Yeah.
So, I mean, and you as someone relatively new, not so new at this point to the area, what did you think of it? What was your take?
I mean, they're incredible. Yes, there's definitely a reason why they're so popular. But not something you need to do all in one day for sure. This is something that I have explored over time in my 3 years here. And, all in all, I think these permits are to make it a better experience for everyone who's going. And it's not that hard to get a permit. I know it's one more thing you have to worry about, but really, if you're listening to this podcast in May, there's a ton of permits available. So it's really not that hard to, pay $2 and get out there.
$2 is nothing. I know it's people are like, oh, it used to be free. And yeah, that was great. But $2 is $2. It's less. It's honestly these days less than a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I paid $3.50 for my cup of coffee today, and that was a lot. But that's almost 2 permits, 2 cars worth in Multnomah Falls.
Oh man, now we sound like those boomers being like, stop buying your coffee and maybe you can buy a house.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was the one time the coffee machine at work is broken. I had to buy a cup. Well, Vicky, I mean, I am curious though. You mentioned they're all beautiful. Do you have any favorite spots in this waterfall corridor? Any places you're like, you gotta see?
Well, I really like taking people to Lateral Falls, and doing, especially if someone's not a huge hiker, but they want to do like a smaller casual hike. The loop there is really, really stunning. And it gives someone who's not a typical hiker like a little taste of what we offer here in and around Portland. So that's one that I often will take friends who are visiting me. But otherwise, I still haven't been to Waterfall Falls. So I have some visitors coming in town in a few weeks. So maybe we will hit that up.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
They're all good. I mean, I love the Waukena Multnomah Falls loop.
Yeah.
It runs. It's just, if you go uphill from Multnomah Falls, you go up to the bridge, and you take those paved switchbacks up to the top of the waterfall, which is also a great view. Not everyone does that. It's a little bit of a hike, but it's so cool to stand up at the upper lip of Multnomah Falls.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the trails back there. The Larch Mountain Trail runs all the way up to the top of Larch Mountain, but it passes by a number of other waterfalls. And you can take a little side trail that runs kind of up above, parallel to the historic highway, and runs down to Waukena Falls, which has another separate parking area down off the highway. And that's a nice loop you can do there. I love doing that, when it's like the water's running a little bit more, like earlier in the springtime before the crowd's there. But when you get some rains and some snow melt, that's a great time to go. And a shout out to Triple Falls. While we're talking waterfalls in there, have you done Triple Falls?
I haven't done Triple Falls.
Yeah, it's very cool waterfall, and it's like 3 branched falls there. And this is one of those spots that got just decimated by the Eagle Creek fire, which is sad, but also it makes that trail look so gnarly. It's just like all blackened snags and like really like exposed rock. Insane. I mean, when you're used to doing like some of these forested waterfall hikes, it's a much different kind of look. And folks who did this before the fire and who are used to that forested feel might feel a little trepidatious going out there because it is all burns. But I think it's just such an interesting landscape now. You get, as a photographer too, like you get just such a different look, different kinds of colors and shapes, and it's very interesting.
Okay. I'll have to hit that one up soon.
We should note, as we're talking about this, there is folks like to know about Oneonta Gorge, which is right near Multnomah Falls, as a hike where you get sort of waded through the water on the way up to a waterfall. A very popular spot before the fire. It is still closed indefinitely. I think there's no plan right now to reopen Oneonta Gorge, so don't try to do that one. And also, in the wake of some really sad news about folks hiking up in the gorge, be careful when you're doing this. Stay on the trail. Keep your eyes and wits about you. Make sure that you're making sure you stay safe when you hike up there, because this is a really steep, dangerous, wild area. It requires your focus and attention. So
yes, watch your footing, and especially when it does get crowded, people passing by through narrow spots. Yeah, just watch your footing. If you're taking photos, know where you're standing and be safe.
Yeah. And enjoy it. Again, so beautiful out there.
Yeah.
Don't be too intimidated by all this.
Yeah.
But folks, that will do it for us for today. Until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast, as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at OregonLive.com/podsupport. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you're interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@oregonian.com. This episode of the show is produced by me, Vicki Connor, alongside Jamie Hale.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.